You grab your keys, slide on your shoes, and head toward the door while your dog watches quietly from across the room, maybe with a small wag of the tail or a curious tilt of the head. And from your point of view, everything feels ordinary, just another moment in a normal day. You give them a quick pat, say something simple like, "Be good," and step outside. The door closes, the sound of your footsteps fades down the hallway or driveway. And if someone could look inside the house a minute later, it might appear that nothing unusual is happening at all, because your dog might simply lie down, walk to the window, or curl up on their favorite spot on the floor, which is why many people assume their dogs are completely fine when they leave. But inside the dog's brain, a complex psychological and biological process has already started unfolding, a process shaped by thousands of years of evolution and deep social bonding. Because dogs were never designed to live isolated lives the way modern humans often do. Their ancestors survived in tight social groups where staying close to others meant protection, food, and safety, and separation from the group in the wild could mean vulnerability or even death. So over countless generations, the canine brain developed powerful neurological systems that respond strongly to social separation. And when humans domesticated dogs, those systems didn't disappear, but instead redirected themselves toward people, meaning that for many dogs, the human family becomes their pack, their secure base, their center of emotional stability. Which is why when you walk out the door, your dog's brain does not interpret the moment the same way you do. Because while you might think, "I'm leaving for work," or "I'll be back later," your dog's brain begins asking a very different question. Where did my social partner go? And when the door closes, the first stage is usually expectation. The dog waits and listens carefully for returning footsteps, because many times in daily life, humans leave briefly and come back within seconds, maybe to grab a phone or pick up forgotten keys. So the dog's brain initially assumes the separation will be short. But when those footsteps do not return and the silence grows longer, the brain's threat detection system begins to activate, particularly a small but powerful region called the amygdala, which plays a central role in processing fear and emotional uncertainty. And once the amygdala interprets the absence as something potentially concerning, it signals another brain region known as the hypothalamus to begin activating the body's stress response, which in turn triggers the release of hormones like cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream, hormones designed to prepare the body for action and heightened awareness, increasing alertness, sharpening hearing, and placing the dog in a state of hypervigilance where they become more sensitive to sounds, movements, and environmental cues. Which is why many dogs move toward the door or window shortly after their owner leaves, scanning the environment and listening closely, because their brain is still expecting the possibility of reunion at any moment. And studies that have used home cameras to observe dogs left alone reveal something fascinating. The most emotionally intense period often occurs during the first few minutes after the owner leaves, sometimes within the first 10 minutes, when the brain cycles rapidly through expectation, confusion, and stress. And during this period, some dogs display very obvious behaviors, such as barking, whining, pacing in circles, scratching doors, chewing furniture, or howling loud enough for neighbors to hear. But not all dogs react this way, and this is where many misunderstandings occur, because some dogs respond to separation not with loud protest, but with silence, simply lying still on the floor or sitting quietly by the door for long periods of time. And to a human observer, this might look like calm behavior or independence. Yet behavioral science suggests that silence does not always equal comfort, and in fact, some quiet dogs may still be experiencing elevated stress internally while showing very little outward movement, because animals sometimes cope with overwhelming situations by reducing activity rather than increasing it, entering a state where they conserve energy and wait. And in repeated situations where separation occurs daily, this waiting behavior can slowly shape the dog's expectations about the world, especially if the dog has no way to influence the situation or change the outcome. And this is where psychologists use a term called learned helplessness, a concept first studied in animals and later applied to many species, including humans, which describes a condition where an individual stops trying to change a situation after repeatedly experiencing events they cannot control, meaning that if a dog repeatedly experiences long separations without understanding when their owner will return, they may eventually stop barking or pacing altogether, not because they are comfortable, but because their brain has learned that no action will bring their social partner back faster. So instead, the dog waits quietly, conserving energy and remaining alert for the eventual moment of reunion. And when the owner finally does return, the dog's brain rapidly shifts from stress mode into reward mode as neurotransmitters associated with pleasure and bonding, including dopamine and oxytocin, begin rising, reinforcing the powerful emotional importance of the human-dog relationship, which is one reason greetings between dogs and owners can be so enthusiastic after even short separations. Because from the dog's perspective, the reunion represents the restoration of social stability, the return of safety, and the end of uncertainty. And this entire emotional cycle can repeat itself day after day in households where dogs spend long hours alone,
which is why modern animal behavior research emphasizes the importance of helping dogs gradually learn that being alone does not mean abandonment or danger.